extensive stakeholders.
Is there a scientific method?
We are coming to that. We are coming to that, yeah. Through extensive consultation with politicians, political parties, stakeholders, and focus group. So, and you can see that we are not saying that every MP or every candidate must be allowed to spend an equal amount of money. This is the maximum they can spend. Right. This is the maximum they can spend. It's not the maximum. It's not that they must have this money and spend it.
All right. This applies to all the positions.
All the positions.
Presidential, governor, senatorial,
all the way to MCA.
Assembly, all the way to MCAs. Now, this means thousands of political aspirants. How will you monitor how this money is being contributed and spent?
This regime of law is akin to the regime of taxation in this country. All of us in this country pay taxation. And the methodology is we report, we disclose how much we have acquired, and it is calculated and audited, and that is the method of reporting. The onus of reporting is given to the political candidates and political party. The same way the onus of you paying your income tax and corporate tax is given to companies and individuals. So it is not, it's not anything novel. But what we should see, for the first time in this country, we are having a law that is bringing parity in matters of election spending. For the first time in this country, we are having a regime of law that make a candidate disclose his sources of income. And the beauty of this law is that we are going to stop the corporate illicit money and foreign donors from influencing the decision in this country. Because the onus, you must disclose that you are where you got your funds. And you are not just asked to spend 5.2 billion. I saw the analysis. We talk about 14 million shillings a day. How much does it cost if I want to advertise with standard media for half an hour or 15 minutes?
All right.
Per day.
Fair enough.
I mean, tell me per day, how much will you charge me? 3,000?
Maybe.
3 million? Or 1.5 million?
It depends on the rate card, yes. But hold that thought.
And that is it.
This is anchored on self-disclosure. Right, we'll come to that. But let's now take a look at what these new guidelines by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission have continued to elicit different reactions from different stakeholders and different people. Let's take into that by KTN's Duncan Haimba.
According to the Election Financing Act of 2013, the usual glare and fanfare associated with election campaigns could be a thing of the past should IEBC gazetted notice be adhered to by political parties and candidates. In the new regulations, the total contribution to a political party has been capped at 15 billion shillings, while the maximum amount a party can receive from a single source is 3 billion shillings. A limit that has also been put on how much a political party should spend, both during party nominations or primaries and during the campaign period. During nominations, a political party will be required to spend 450 million shillings on venues and only 9.4 million thereafter. On publicity, the authorized amount is 1.4 billion. That is 700 million shillings during party nominations and similar amount during the campaign period. Spending transportation has been capped at 13 million shillings during both periods. Mobilization at party primaries is 90 million and 200 million shillings during the campaign period. Security at the usually chaotic party nominations is 145 million, while during campaigns, a political party will spend a maximum of 725 million shillings.
But when the community there is that campaign period coming when I should eat, and the leader thinks of now how I can get the votes is to amass money, I should steal money, then that is a very bad idea. What they have proposed is just promoting impunity. IEBC has clearly said, please steal.
On presidential election, a presidential candidate will only be required to spend a maximum of 5.2 billion. Authorized expenditure for the venue for each candidate has been put at 28.9 million. On publicity and media, they will be required to use a maximum of 115.9 million, 434.8 on campaign personnel, and 289.9 million on election agents. Transportation cost has been capped at 869.7 million, while candidate expenses, that is on wardrobe, photography and surveys, allocated an amount of 652.3 million.
Where will this money come from? When you tell a person in your campaign use 5 billion, then you are politely saying, we are thugs, you steal. IEBC should be questioned. Where do you expect people to come to actually get this money from?
Aspiring members of the National Assembly can only spend a maximum of 33 million, while aspiring MCAs will be required to spend not more than 10 million shillings. Aspiring governors, senators, and women representatives in Nairobi will be required to spend a maximum of 400 million, but varies when it comes to other counties.
The people are corrupt, the leaders are corrupt, and the body that is there to ensure that the Kenyans get the right education about what leadership pertains, and the leaders go down to what leadership needs, is coming up with a system telling people where you will get it from is not our business. Money that you have never seen should be used in 6 months, in 3 months. When
the prescribed expenditure period is 6 months to the next year's general election, that is between 8th February and 8th August 2017. A person convicted of an offense of violating the set maximum limits is liable to a fine not exceeding 2 million shillings or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or both. Duncan Hemba, KTN News.
And we are talking to IEBC Commissioner Mohammed Alawi to just shed more light on this. Mr. Commissioner, do you think from where you stand, 5.2 billion, for example, is enough to campaign for the presidency? And since this law, these guidelines are expected to set a level playing field for all candidates, do you think you'll achieve this?
For me, I'm not a political candidate. For me, I'm a commissioner. My work is to make sure that the money is used for authorized purposes. And we have specifically specified for every limb where the money is allowed to be used. What is also important is not only the spending of the money, is disclosure of where that money is coming from. The ceiling must not be reached. It must not be breached. We're saying you can spend up to this amount of money, but you cannot breach it, cannot break the ceiling. So what is important here is that we have to look at the law in totality. You must disclose your sources of income. You must disclose your expenditure. And that in itself is a very good law.
That brings me to my next question, Mr. Commissioner. This law is anchored on self-disclosure. Don't you think that is a weakness of the law?
To the contrary, that is the strength of the law. That is the strength of the law. Look at it this way. The law is very clear how much you can spend in the media and coverage. Everybody knows the media rates in this country. People can monitor how many sessions you have buy from the media. And they can say that he has claimed to have spent 20 million, but he has actually spent 16 here, or 32 million. It focuses the monitors, it focuses the political class, the candidate, to be spending the amount that is allowed by law. It is not a global figure. It is a figure that is broken down on authorized expenditure. And you see, I will tell you this again and again, world over, government collects and monitor taxes through personal disclosure. And what different will it be here, whereby candidates are also told you can only spend this amount of money on these aspects, right, and you must disclose your sources, and you must say how much you've spent.
Final question. There's a lot of skepticism about this law, and if the political parties and candidates are going to abide by these regulations, are the penalties stringent enough to make sure that the political parties abide by these laws?
I think the penalty is stringent enough. I mean, the amount of money involved may look small, but the prison term, and there could be other effect. It could also be a ground of petition at the same time, yeah, that you have spent, you have spent more than allowed in the campaign. I think what is important that this is a new law.
All right.
It's a new water for this country that we must look at it, we must embrace it. For the first time, you have two options: whether to have no law at all, so you allow people to bring money from wherever they want to bring, spend as much as they want.
So it's a starting point.
Or you must put ceilings and force people to disclose their sources of income.
All right. Thank you so much. Mohamed Alawi, IEBC Commissioner, just telling us more about the guidelines to cap campaign financing. And that is the basis of our big question discussion here on KTN Prime. We're asking, should presidential candidates be allowed to spend up to 5 billion shillings in the campaigns? Keep sending your text to 22155. You can tweet us at Ben_Kitili, at KTN News, and at KTN Kenya. The hashtag is KTN Prime. We're taking a quick commercial break here on KTN Prime. When we return, we have more news for you. Don't go too far. Happenings in the country, but also we've been keeping an eye on the race to the White House, and Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton says she'll appoint a chief trade prosecutor when elected, or if elected as president. Let's now take you live to Michigan, where Clinton is presenting her economic policy.
I intend, starting even before the election,
to conduct party primaries and still oversee the general election.
Punches, blows, and kicks have become synonymous with political parties' nomination exercise. The blatant intolerance witnessed during the exercise has now defined parties' internal democracy in a negative sense. But with less than a year to the August 8th, 2017 polls, an announcement by President Uhuru Kenyatta that the country's electoral agency, the IEBC, will conduct nominations for the soon-to-be launched Jubilee Party has sparked off a political storm.
IEBC must be corrected first, and it must focus on its core mandate of supervising the general elections. Political parties must deal with their own agenda.
Tuwauliza pia hata vyama vingine vya kisiasa wahakikishe pia hata hawa watakuwa na hiyo tunaita internal party democracy.
But don't come up with regulations to force political parties to invite IEBC. Political parties are private organizations.
The IEBC has a task to regulate nominations, and the IEBC has not done that in the past. So what we need is the regulations for the political parties to be able to use as a minimum.
But legal experts are now divided on whether the IEBC has any mandate to conduct party nominations. Chairperson of the Commission on Administrative Justice, Otiende Amolo, argues that the IEBC has no business conducting party nominations, as its mandate, as stipulated in Article 88, Clause 4D of the Constitution, only relates to a supervisory role. But former Commissioner of the Constitution Implementation Commission, Catherine Muma, disagrees.
So nothing stops a Jubilee Party or ODM from deciding that we want a neutral arbiter and we would want the IEBC to actually conduct for us, the political parties.
It will be a budget almost similar to the budget of holding an election, because we are doing party primaries across the country. It will require the same amount of polling agents, it will require the same amount of returning officers. So before the idea is effected, there's need to have an internalization and planning.
The parties collect nomination fees. And many candidates across the country wonder, what is this nomination fee for? Especially when it's collected by the parties that don't conduct nominations. So ideally, once you collect the money from these candidates as a party, we should hand over the money then to the polling body.
In 2013, for instance, IEBC capped nomination fees for those eyeing the presidency at 1 million, governorship at 500,000, MPs at 250,000, while those running for the MCA seats would pay a maximum of 50,000 shillings. Analysts argued that a huge share of these funds end up being used in campaigns.
The moment political parties start engaging in paying the electoral body to have its services conducted, then that begins to lay the foundation for people, for killing the independence or undermining the independence of that very institution as required by law.
We need to have a framework provided for either by law or by regulations that sets out the modus operandi of how IBC can be involved in primaries of respective parties. I've seen IBC being involved in elections of certain organizations like the LSK.
But political parties must be held accountable to ensuring that when they run their own affairs, for political party nominations in particular, that's part of the electoral system, that it must comply with the values and principles of the Constitution.
As the debate continues over the legitimacy of party nominations presided over by the IEBC, political parties are under intense pressure to assure their aspirants of credible nominations in 2017. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Join us every Thursday night for political analysis on Spotlight 2017. Each year, about 50,000 Kenyans join the job market from both private and public universities. However, it is becoming increasingly difficult for these graduates to secure employment opportunities. KTN's Lofty Matambo now brings us a story of a Kenyan who decided to make a billboard displaying his qualifications to the eyes of potential employers.
Patrick Mudhomi knows his hot spot, roasters along Thika Road, Nairobi. This is where he advertises his skills and qualifications. I am a graduate of Bachelor of Communication. I also did CPA to Section 4. Please give me a job. Though many passers-by ignore his large writings, he has every reason to do this.
Wacha nikuje barabarani, niinue hii mbana. Na niinue juu kabisa, ule mtu ataona kiwa kwa gari yake na pengine ako na kazi mahali naweza kufanya, atanipigia simu, aniite.
Patrick studied at Chuka Private University. He lacked school fees and therefore could not finish his last semester of the last year of his degree course.
Hiyo ni mambo nilikuwa niambie mtu yoyote ule angetaka kunipea job, nikae na yeye chini nimwambie mimi nimebakisha hiyo semester moja.
Patrick laments that the few employment opportunities in Kenya are for those who have connections with the powerful people.
Kazi ziko lakini wengi hawajui ile mtandao unaweza tumia kupata kazi.
This is Mudhomi's home in Nairobi's Mwiki Estate. Joyce Mudhomi is his wife. They got married in the year 2013 while he was a second-year university student. They are now blessed with a pretty baby girl, Sheila McKenna, who is now 2.5 years old.
Kama ningekuwa ni bibi peke yake nika naye bila mtoto, sidhani kama ningechukua hatua hii. Kwa sababu hii hatua nilichukua wakati nilipoona mtoto wangu ameanza kukua, anataka kwenda shule.
Actually naona atafaulu sababu zile simu amereceive mpaka saa hii zinanitia moyo.
McKenna's father looks upon this banner to open up doors to enable him cater for his family's needs.
Before then alikuwa anauza serviette, tissue, air fresheners, vitu kama hizo.
Apart from Patrick, Gilbert, who graduated with a degree course in electrical engineering from Technical University of Kenya, did this on June. 2 months on the road, he says he has never received any positive calls for job offers. These Kenyans received attention in equal measures, some criticizing them for seeking unnecessary attention. But this could not be a strange scenario in the world. In the year 2013, a Briton by the name Adam Pasiti advertised his qualifications on billboards using his last cash of £500, equivalent to 66,000 shillings. In 1 week's time, he received over 1,000 calls, leading to his employment at one communication firm in Britain. As 29-year-old Patrick wipes off the dust of his famous billboard, it is estimated that about half of the over 50,000 graduates from Kenyan universities every year are not fully baked for the job market, a 2014 Inter-University Council for East Africa research revealed. However, Patrick is optimistic that he is not among the half-baked graduates.
In times where the level of unemployment is above 40%, probably graduates will use any means to make sure that they get employment. But will this one work, at least for Patrick? Lofty Matambo, KTN News in Nairobi.
And members of Parliament have trashed the proposed 7-point memorandum of understanding by the Kenya Bankers Association and the Central Bank of Kenya to cut lending rates by 100 basic points, stating that the MOU is designed to mislead the president into not signing the bill. The MPs led by the bill's proponent, Kiambu Member of Parliament Jude Njomo, urged the president to sign the bill into law.
Parliament seemingly want nothing to do with the memorandum of understanding between commercial banks and their regulator, the Central Bank of Kenya, seeking to self-regulate on the issues of interest rates.
Those banks are up to nothing but to deceive you with those memorandums. They have done it in the past in commitments which were not met. We want interest rates back to 14.5%.
This barely a day after the umbrella body of lenders, the Kenya Bankers Association, said it sought to offer practical solutions to interest rates while still retaining free market principles that are currently enjoyed by the private sector.
It's not a legally binding document, but clearly when you make a pledge or commitment to your regulator in the glare of the public, it is certainly something that you will take very seriously.
Lenders have agreed to set aside a combined 30 billion shillings to improve access to capitalize SMEs at concessionary rates.
There is a down payment that we have made, an immediate commitment that banks collectively in Kenya will put a pool of 30 billion shillings, which will be offered to the SMEs at concessionary rates that will not go beyond 14.5%, which is quite concessionary. Then out of the 30 billion, 10 billion is earmarked for women.
The central bank has come out in tacit support so long as banks show clear commitment.
Banks only report when things are getting worse, in a sense to punish you as a consumer, and do not report when things improve, meaning when you have you make your payments quickly or whatever else it is, then the whole framework falls apart.
MPs, however, urge that should the bankers be genuine in their undertaking, they should then make presentations to Parliament.
We are wondering whether this is a genuine change of heart by the bankers, or it's a knee-jerk reaction to try and persuade the president not to sign the bill into an act.
With the banks now seemingly pinned between a rock and hard place and MPs holding their ground about legislating an interest rate cap, consumers of credit can breathe easy because finally the thorny issues of exorbitant interest rates and opaque bank charges are finally front and center. Ashley Mazuri, KTN Business.
All eyes on the presidency to see if the president signs that bill into law. Now, in 2013, the Jubilee administration set out an ambitious promise to pursue food and nutrition security. Yet, despite targeted investments like the 260 billion shillings Galana Kulalo irrigation project, a food secure Kenya remains far out of reach. Joy Doreen Bira takes stock of the current prevailing situation.
Kenya, just like many other African nations whose mainstay is agriculture, largely depend on rain-fed produce. But now, more than ever, with changes in weather patterns as a result of climate change, it is important that the country moves from dependency on rain-fed agriculture to irrigation and technology-based agriculture.
Just the demands for food in dollar terms value right now in the continent is around 300 billion. By 2030, that's going to grow to $1 trillion.
The Sustainable Development Goal number 2 looks to end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture by the year 2030. But if we do not upgrade to agriculture-based technology and start to look at agriculture as the future, Kenya could be thrown into a spate of food shortage in the future.
A government that is committed to reducing hunger and poverty should look first and most importantly at agriculture. There's no questions about that. You cannot import your way out of poverty.
For Kenya to be ranked as a food-secure nation, experts say the investment in agriculture would need to be 11 times more than is currently the case in order to be declared entirely hunger-free.
How do we produce consistently, good quality, and enough quantities that can actually supply these kinds of markets? One of the key things around that is farmer organizations. And farmer organizations then start to play a very key role in terms of organizing smallholder farmers and linking them to markets.
Agriculture in Kenya today is largely subsistence, practiced by the elderly and with low levels of technology application, a situation which spells doom for serious efforts at improving food security. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN News.
Let's now bring you today's numbers at the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as well as how the Kenya shilling is doing as compared to other world currencies.
Tomorrow. My name is Lynn Washira, and that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Sports. Have a very good night. Enjoy the rest of the viewing. But of course, Ben Kitili is up next to wrap up KTN Prime.
Tonight we did ask you, should presidential candidates be allowed to spend up to 5 billion shillings in their campaigns? Here's what you've had to say about this. And one here from Peter Theory, who says, question is, where in the first place are they getting the money, if I know what a billion is? Wanjala Eric says, if one has real leadership qualities, then a campaign can just serve as awareness avenue, not investment. Agostino Chando says, we, the taxpayers, are the ones who feel the pain being taxed to facilitate greedy leaders' campaigns. And finally, one comment here from Martins Munyoki, who says, this IBC law on campaign expenditure is dead on arrival. Why make a law that will never be implemented? Thank you for participating in our big question discussion, for joining us on KTN Prime all through this week. Up next on KTN Home is Jeff Koinange live. Up next on KTN News is Sophia Wanuna with the last word tonight. They'll be discussing the school ranking issue. Her guests are already here at the KTN News Center. Be sure to join her after this. That is next on KTN News. Thanks for watching. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from the KTN News Center.